you've ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber, so I have decided to tell this story, and it's definitely an interesting story. So if you could imagine going back with me to 1990, and I was a freshman in college at the University of Akron. I still had my first motorcycle, a 1987 Honda Hurricane 600, and when I got it, it was way out of my league. I should have never got it, but I saved the money and I bought it, so hey, if I wanted to kill myself, I was allowed to. But anyways, I still had the bike. And I was driving it back and forth once in a while to Akron University, and especially when I go to Kent, because, you know, in those days and time, if you had a bike like that and you were cool, you could probably pick up some chicks. So that was my angle. I was going to Kent to try to meet some girls. So went to a club, did whatever, and ended up meeting this really nice girl. And got along really well with her. I was really impressed about how natural our ability to hang out after meeting that night was. So we left the club and ended up talking outside for a couple hours. And then just at that point decided, you know what, we are going to go out on a date. Let's do this. We seem like we get along pretty well. So a few days go by, and I give this girl a call up to finalize the plans for our awesome date that we had set up the night I met her. And it was decided that we were going to go to a Mexican restaurant. I picked her up on the motorcycle, and it was a late September evening. Probably 70 degrees, beautiful. So we took kind of a long ride to get to the restaurant. I think she enjoyed herself. I felt a couple of squeezes when I gave it some throttle. So we went and we sat down and we ordered, and I was never afraid of ordering Mexican food. So I got myself a giant burrito and she got whatever she got. And I just remember thinking like, man, that's a big burrito. And the sauces were good. The hot sauce was good. Everything was good. Conversation. We just had an excellent, excellent dinner. I'm into this girl. This girl's all right. So after more talking and more hanging out, we decided that we wanted to continue this date and do something else. So discussions were had about maybe going to a movie, maybe going for a walk, going downtown and looking around and doing things like that. But at the end of the day, she said that her roommate and her roommate's boyfriend were going to be there watching a movie. And we want to go back to her dorm and watch this movie with the roommate and her boyfriend. And I said, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. I'm in. So we rode the 20 minutes and got to her dorm, which I had never been in a dorm at that point. I was living in a little punk rock house on the outside of my campus. But, you know, giant, this brick building or cement building or whatever it was. So we climbed the steps. I think she was on the 4th or 5th floor. And we got inside. And sure enough, her roommate was there and her boyfriend. And there was a couch and a chair and almost another couch. So there was plenty of seating, nothing awkward or anything like that. So she sat down on the smaller couch, and I sat next to her, and we were talking to her roommates. And it was about that time that I started to notice that my stomach was a little gurgly. And you know how it is when you're on a first date. You're trying to play it cool. You're trying to be like, all right, this ain't happening, man. I'm just going to hold this in and not talk about it. So we're talking and hanging out. And it hadn't really started the movie yet. It was like the pre-movie talking session. And I'm getting to know her roommate. Her roommate's kind of feeling me out, asking me all these questions and stuff. And at the time I was a musician, I had some interesting hair. I'm not going to lie. In the early 90s, there might have been mohawks involved or something like that. Anyways, so we're hanging out, talking. And man, my stomach is not getting better. In fact, I'm starting to get that sweat that's coming over here, coming down. And my stomach is starting to cramp up. So just casually, trying to be pretty slick, I just say, hey, where's your restroom? And sure enough, it was the door that was directly next to the couch that her roommate and boyfriend were sitting on, and about 5 feet away from the couch that we were sitting on. So now I didn't make my move immediately. I said, okay, good to know. I might have to use that at some point. And they were like, okay. So we just continued, and I believe they started the movie. And we were about 15 minutes into the movie, and my stomach started to grovel. I mean, I was having issues. I was like, okay, if I even try to squeak what's in there out, I'm going to have an issue. So I better just call it and go to the bathroom. I mean, come on, everybody goes to the bathroom. It's not that big of a deal. It's not the world's most embarrassing thing, even on a first date. In my head, I had it down saying, hey, every single person in the world has this happen. It might be funny, it might be a laugh, but it's not the end of the world. Let's do it. I got up and I said, excuse me, but I have to go to the bathroom. So I walk into the bathroom, and it's your typical college little tiny dormitory bathroom, toilet, sink next to it, shower in the back corner. And I immediately turn on the water and I sit down. If you've ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber, when the one guy's in the bathroom, the other guy, and he's in the bathroom and he has the explosion of all explosions, where he's literally holding onto his ankles and it just sounds like a machine gun of turds are flying out of his butt. That's what was happening to me. I had a straight up diarrhea, gross, nasty turd attack. And I had, it wasn't outside of my ability to understand that this was happening while the girl that was of my current affection was sitting 5 feet outside of a door with her roommate and a dude who probably didn't even like me that much anyways, just waiting for me to come out. I knew that this was not going to go well. But what could I do at this point? So at one point I realized that I had been in there probably way too long and decided I had to get this sucker finished and out. So I finished up the best I could. Jumped up, water was already running, which had been running for 20 minutes. So at that point, I don't know if that covered up anything or just made me look more like an idiot. But I washed my hands, used a towel, flushed the toilet, and walked out just to take my little bit of heat. So I walked out, and the roommate's boyfriend looks over and says, "Everything come out okay?" "As you do." And I looked over laughing and said, "Yeah, everything did." Thinking that, okay, I'm over it. This is the worst of the worst. Now I can get back to the business of wooing my date. But no, at that point, I heard water running. And I'm not talking about the sink. I'm talking about an overflow of water running. And I turned in horror and looked as the toilet was overflowing, and several of my turds were now overflowing and on the floor, being pushed across the ground, through the bathroom, over the cusp of the bathroom, and into the living room. Yes, I was mortified, horrified. At that moment, the time had slowed down that every second seemed like 4 minutes. I was weighing my options. I was looking around the room at the horror coming from the face of her roommate, the horror of the girl I was trying to date, and the sheer ecstasy of the boyfriend of the roommate. He lost it and pointed at it and said, "The dude's shit is on the floor." And I looked back and I didn't know what to do. I made the breakneck decision to exit stage left. I said, "All right, see you guys later," and I left. And that was it. I never heard from that girl again. I never heard from any of the people in the room again. I pretty much thought I was going to go and just leave Akron U and never talk to any human being again for the rest of my life. But that didn't happen. And I actually told the story to a couple of my friends at the punk rock house, and they laughed so hard that they thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I had told this story at parties over the years and things like that. And it is slightly embarrassing for me, but it's a true story and it is pretty funny. But when Phil was talking about his stories a couple of days ago, he said, "I wonder what that person who was involved in the story, what their version of the story is." And that's where this whole thing came from. As I sat there thinking about it, right now I'm still thinking, what does that girl tell people? What is her version of the story? It can't be good. And I just hope that she has forgotten my name so she doesn't attach it to whatever version of the story is hers. Anyways, so that's just a little, not necessarily I wrote a motorcycle tour thing, so it is a moto story. So there's one for you. Projects are coming. More stories from Phil and the guys are coming. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's cool too. Thanks.